What's up, everybody? Welcome to Free Lady. I'm your host, Brittany McQuethe, and we're on episode 21. 21 happens to be one of my favorite numbers, so I'm really excited to have Jen on here. And we're in a lunar eclipse this year, so it's a lot of, today, you'll be watching it on Monday, but today is the lunar eclipse. So a lot of shifting, changing, and a lot of regrowth, which is always so important for all of us to have. So this is Jen. Jen, go ahead and introduce yourself and, tell us what you do.
I'm Jennifer Bjarnson. I am an RTT hypnotherapist. I am really the thing that I do specifically, because I know not many people are very well informed with what hypnotherapy is. But when there is a blockage, when there is just something you're so stuck on and you cannot get past, and you've tried the self-help books and you've tried the mentors and you've tried, right, like the willpower of I'm just going to run at this wall time after time after time. Hypnotherapy is really that bridge that gets you over it. It really is what figures out why you can't get past something. And then that's when the mentors make sense and the self-help starts to make sense and the goal setting really sets in.
That is so cool. I've never done that, but I would love to try that just because I'm like always willing to like break any barriers. We constantly have them or constantly breaking through them. So it's super cool. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. But first of all, we are going to start off always with 3 things that we are grateful for. I am super grateful for, I just turned 40 last Friday. I had friends and family in town. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful to experience an amazing concert at Red Rocks. Like, it was just such a vibe and the energy was great. And it's just really amazing to see people just like let go through music. It's very beautiful for me to see that and feel that. And of course, I'm thankful for any time we break barriers in ourselves for change. And I feel like, especially now, are so many barriers that I've been breaking through personally. And I love that it's constantly changing and it's hard work, it's growth, but it's good. You know what I mean? So Jen, what are you thankful for today?
Well, I have to say I'm so grateful for my family. I mean, they just truly are amazing. We have 4 almost teenagers, so we're getting the teenager, the middle schooler, and I truly love it. I mean, I'm not saying it's not without challenges, but I truly love it. They're so much fun, and they're definitely getting their own personalities and their own opinions. And sometimes that is a great thing, and sometimes it's like
Yeah.
Woo.
Awesome.
But overall, it is really amazing to watch them turn into adults. And with my husband, like, he is just the best partner and spouse. So I have to say I'm thankful for that. And then I would have to say that this is kind of a random one, but we have ducks and chickens, and we are starting our own homestead, which I am very much becoming obsessed with. It is just so much fun to watch them. And it's just such a joy to start a new project.
Yeah.
And I'm not great at it, but that's okay. That's okay. We're learning part of that growth, right?
Right.
And then just doing what I get to do. I'm so grateful that I get to be a part of people's journey as they have that aha moment and have that moment in their life where they're overcoming something. It's a really amazing and special experience that I am so grateful that I get to be a part of.
Yeah, I get that. I get that through hair, but just, different in different ways. That is super, super amazing. I do have to say one thing. I have to shout out to the boyfriend. He got this sweater for my birthday, and
That is
probably
amazing.
the most amazing gift ever. I love the Labyrinth. It's one of my favorite movies, and I was like, I gotta wear this in this episode today and give him a little shout out because it's amazing.
That is that sweater. That was one of the first things I noticed, and I was like, that is fabulous.
Yeah,
Like everything about it.
everything about, because I'm a little
Yeah.
obsessed with sweaters. I probably have way too many, and like every time I get one, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite. Like this is like probably gonna be the ultimate favorite for a long time. So Jen, talk to me about, your journey of what it has meant for you to become free and like how you got into hypnotherapy.
Yeah, so I don't think my story is terribly unique. Most people find, therapy or self-help because they were looking for it themselves. And that is exactly how I started. I really found that I was I was in this stage of life where everything looked amazing, I mean, there really wasn't anything wrong,
Yeah,
right? Like I had this great family, we were all healthy, um, great husband, great job, like it was just great. And I found myself being just absolutely miserable, and I didn't know why. I didn't know why I hated life. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know why I woke up every day just dreading waking up.
yeah,
And I remember I got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. And I didn't know what that meant. I just knew I couldn't do it anymore. And I basically was like, okay, I had this moment where I just thought, all right, okay, if what does that mean? What are my options? What am I going to do? Right. And it was this real battle inside myself of like what to do,
yeah,
and how do you not continue with life, but like you don't want to go to extreme, but at the same time you're like, I can't keep doing this.
right.
And I got to a point where I just thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to try everything that there is. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care if it's not socially acceptable. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to try and find something.
Yeah,
And I just really went down this path, and I really did. I tried everything. Like for a moment, or for a while, the watching The Secret was very helpful because it was truly the only thing that just gave me some hope.
right.
And I know that that's not everything. I know there's other things out there, but it was, for a time, it was just kind of the only thing that was giving me hope to say, you can create your own life. You can switch this. And so I just watched that kind of on every night. So I just watch it on repeat as I was going to bed. And I went down energy work and energy healing and essential oils and just everything. And basically, things started to kind of shift. I could kind of feel certain things.
Huh.
Energy work was starting to help. And I thought, okay. And I was starting to feel like I had a little bit more control. And I was starting to grasp this concept that our brains really and our minds really do control
Yeah,
our experiences.
absolutely.
And when I figured this out, I took this certification to become an energy healer. And all that I was doing it was for myself. It wasn't even to help people. I just wanted to not hate life was my
Yeah,
goal.
yeah,
Like I was like, forget everybody else. This is for me.
right.
And when I found out how much, I don't know how well versed you are with like Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden, but they really have a lot to do with our minds, can heal our bodies, um, the mind body connection is just amazing.
Yes, I agree.
And yeah, and when I looked into it, it was really amazing. And I very quickly became just like down the rabbit hole of,
Hmm.
well, how far can I take this? Well,
Yeah,
how far can I fix? Well, how much can I fix? And I forgot to mention that I had been diagnosed with quite a few things. I mean, at first they went from anxiety, or first they went from depression, then they were, oh, well, you have anxiety and depression. Okay. Well, then you have ADHD, anxiety, and depression. Okay. And then at a certain point, it was like, well, you have bipolar, ADHD, anxiety, and it was just, it was
Wow.
becoming this running joke that every time I'd go to a
Yeah.
doctor or a therapist, it was like I'd get a new acronym or I'd get a new diagnosis of some
Huh.
kind. And when I really started broadening my mind, I started learning about all this. My goal was first to not hate life. And
Yeah.
then it expanded to, can I overcome this?
Yeah.
Because the majority of people just manage it. They manage it with diet, they manage it with medication, they manage it. And I thought, I don't want to manage this. I'm not going to manage this. I'm not going to do this for another 30, 40, 50 years. So what do I do? How do we do this? And the more I learned about it, the more I started to heal myself, the more I started to come out of these, get off medications, just become more clear. And going from all of these diagnoses and just this brain fog and just this heaviness of your brain just going 90 miles an hour to feeling clear, to feeling normal. And I hate to use that word because, right, like that's, but I really, there was a certain point where I would look around and I go, is this how all of you feel? Is this what you, yeah, is this your day to day? Like you don't have just constant congestion and just constant craziness going on. And it was such an amazing thing to have that shift. And then it turned into, when I found hypnotherapy, it just really was a driving force to, it was the biggest thing that I found the quickest, the most efficient results from.
Yeah.
After a couple of sessions, I just felt clear. And then I'd have another session and I'd even feel more clear. And so it got to a point where I felt great, which was awesome. And I was living a good life. And
Yeah.
then, but I would watch these people, I'd watch family, I'd watch friends. And it was really hard to just sit back and just let other people suffer.
Yeah.
And so I went and got licensed and certified and everything. And so now my goal is to really show people that you can get past so much. I don't just work on mental health, but
Yeah.
just there's so much that we can get past.
Right.
And we live kind of in a world where so much is just managed. Mental health is managed, and we just, right, let's give a pill, or
Oh, I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I get it, pills can help some people,
Absolutely.
right,
Absolutely.
and they totally got me through. Like there is, I am all for, if you're at a point, definitely take the pill, do it. But there's so much out there and there's so much freedom. And so I think, to me, that's what being free is to have the clarity and to be able to not be reliant, to not manage anything anymore, but to truly have the tools and the resources that when something hard comes my way, or when something really challenging, I no longer fear that it's going to take me down, that I'm going to go back to that depression, that I'm going to go back to having that anxiety, because I now have the tools, I now have the resources to get past it, even if something is really hard in life.
Right. Well, it's a sense of recognizing, those feelings and being like, oh, I have a tool for that, But I love that I want to talk about how you woke up one day and you said, I need to make a choice. I need to make a choice. Like, for any of you guys watching out there, like this is when you are at the bottom of the barrel. You're at the bottom of the barrel and you go one way or the other way. And it's really making the choice to want to be alive, and want to seek that happiness and want to seek that fulfillment to yourself, then you can give that to your family. So like, what was that motivation? What clicked for you that you wanted to find that something that was going to pull you out of that?
I think for me, um, it was a combination of things. And I think for one, I have to say, I really have a faith or a belief system that this is not, we move on to something else, that there's something after this.
Yeah.
And in that belief system, I thought, if I do this, if I end this life and I go to the next, is that going to be worth it? Is
Hmm.
that, am I going to look back and go, that was a good choice? And didn't think, I didn't think I would think it was a good choice. And I also, I'm trying to remember his name. He's a physicist, but oh my word, he's very popular. And now I can't think of his name. But one of the things he says is, everything in physics, everything in science tells us that we're energy. And so we move on. And he
Right.
goes, we just don't know what we move on to. And I thought, so if there's a chance that we move on and our conscience moves on, I
Right.
just I just have a hard time believing that I would look back and go, yeah, that was a good idea. Or look back and maybe still, if we progress, and maybe this is going really down the rabbit hole, but I thought, if we progress, am I just going to magically change into something else and be a happier person?
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
is the next step similar to this life where we're still growing? Because
Right.
I think part of this life that's amazing is growth. And
Right.
I think if you look at, that was kind of another thing, if you looked at the really really happy people, one of the things that's their biggest joy is the fact that they don't ever stop growing.
Right.
So in my thinking process, I thought, well, if that's the joy, then we probably still progress. So why, if I ended this, why would I magically go into this happier state? Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Yeah. Oh no, it
Yeah.
totally does. It
Yeah.
really does.
So then I thought, so I would put my family, and which kind of brought me to my next thing, which I would put my family through a really horrific experience. I would put my children through a really horrific experience, and my husband, and the people that, are around me in my circle, and it would have been for all for nothing.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, that's kind of when I sat down and I thought, well, if I end this and I'm still going to have to do the work and I'm still going to have to grow,
Yeah.
maybe I should just do it here. Maybe I should just figure out how to do it here. And then I started looking around, and there was kind of a switch in my brain where I thought, clearly there are happy people. I don't think there are certain people faking it
Yeah.
who truly seem to be happy, right? Like,
Right.
I don't think they're walking around faking it, because what are they getting from just faking it? So
Right.
clearly somebody's happy. Clearly some people are truly happy. And is what it brought me to is, we often hear the phrase that success leaves clues, and that's what, and happiness and peace and joy and purpose and fulfillment of life leaves clues as well.
Yeah.
And so it was, that really turned into my mission, is finding, I just really started looking at people not in a comparison kind of way, but in a, what do you have, and why do you have it, and why do I not have it?
Yeah.
Or are you faking it, right? Like,
Yeah.
are you just pretending to be happy with like these 15 kids? Right? Like, are you faking it?
Yeah.
Or do you really find joy in that? And if you find joy in that, why am I struggling with that? What do you know that I don't know? And so I started doing that with so many different things. Why do you find joy in this, and why do I not find joy in this?
Yeah. That's amazing, spiritual discovery. Because I mean, I've never thought about it that way before, but like that is a very great self question to ask yourself. We're at the bottom of the barrel, like, because I definitely, for me personally, I believe that our soul is going to something else. So, and I feel that it carries into that soul. And if we're on this planet right now and we can do as much work on ourselves as possible, and like if everyone started doing that, like our souls would be reborn even better, stronger, brighter, more feminine, more masculine with who you are. As a very great spiritual self-reflection. I've never heard of anybody saying that before, of, asking yourself of like, well, am I gonna regret that? Because like if I just, do this, it's going to come back into my other life. Like it's just going to. So you might as well, and therefore that turns into a better relationship with yourself. And then that turns into a better relationship with your husband and your kids, and they
Yeah.
all see that through you, and make that connection, and, and watch you go through that, even though it was probably hard. I also think when a child sees like, their mother or father, like getting their shit together to be a better person, like they have more respect for you. And when that happens to them, they're like, my mom did it, you know, then I can do it too. Like we're teaching our kids that we can get through something that was programmed in our childhood, that came into whatever life that we chose to as an adult, was some in some shape or form. Like it's a very beautiful thing because other people are watching you, you know?
Well, yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting that like where did we get the idea that if we end it, that that's now we've just there's no more, right? I mean,
Right.
really nobody knows. I mean, you can go down the different religions of,
Sure.
is there life after death, but it really comes down to there either is or there isn't.
Right.
And which one do you really believe? And
Right.
then after that, it really was, it just got me thinking that i I just I really have a hard time believing that I would look back and go, yeah, that was a good choice. And so I thought, well, if that choice isn't a great idea, then my only choice is to stay here and fix it.
Absolutely.
And not as a bad way, not as a, I'm stuck here, just as a, all right, we'll get to work then,
Yeah.
get after it and start fixing it.
Yeah.
And in
You
a weird way, it kind of gave me some hope
right.
to go, okay. And it gave me a direction, and it kind of gave me a kick in the pants to go, all right,
Yeah.
well, now what am I going to do? What, like now I'm looking for an answer rather than a way out.
Right. And I think you also had to give yourself like the space of like that you were growing into something, that you had a gift, that you have a gift to help heal people. And I think that's why a lot of people are in therapy. Like a lot of people have gone through something and they specialize in that gift because they went through it. And it's an even better gift because you want to help others like receive that gift, or that breaking that boundary, or that that blockage in their mind that's not connecting with your soul. I mean, I don't care if people don't believe like your mind and your soul are totally connected. If you don't believe that, I mean, that's crazy because if you have deja vus, if you feel certain things about your life with people, or you're like, that's part of your past, recognizing that, you did that work, or this is familiar, or, this is exciting and I can get through it. Like I'm so spiritual in that way. And I feel like, everyone's connected. Everything is energy, and energy is everything. And when you tap into that, when you let yourself tap into that energy and your spirituality, connecting your mind to your soul, it really opens up so many beautiful things about your life. And I bet that's what you get to see with hypno hypnotherapy. Like, I can't
Yeah.
imagine what you see, you know? And it's so beautiful that you are there and, instead of watching people struggle, you're like, well, you know what? I'm going to help them and I'm going to know that I'm going to be an expert in this thing and love it.
Yeah, it's the thing that's really quite amazing is to when somebody comes in, and I fully empathize with it, because I get it. I
Yeah,
completely get it. But in their mind, it's this huge thing that they're going through. It's helpless, it's hopeless, it's never going to change.
right.
And in their head, they're going, you don't understand. Like, I have been dealing with this for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And I'm like, yep, I get it.
Yeah,
And I have to ask these questions about, what is it that you want? And it usually turns into what they don't want, right? Well, I don't want this and I don't want that. And it's really fascinating because I even tell people, I say, I'm not being callous. I am listening to you. But at the same time, because I have to ask these questions that are uncomfortable, I have to ask these
yeah,
questions that, how does that make you feel? And they're looking at me like, well, how would you feel? And I'm going, I know, I do, I get
yeah,
it. But the thing that's really fascinating is when and I've said this many times, that my favorite part is when they have this moment of like, you don't understand, and this is such a big thing, and you don't realize the horrible things that happened to me. And then they have this where they connect the dots
yeah,
of, they felt like, because everybody's dealing with the same three things. I don't care how much money you have, I don't care where you live, everybody's dealing with the same three things. They don't feel like they're enough.
mm,
They feel like it's not available to them. Whatever they want, it's not available to them. Or they feel different and they feel like the outcast, and they're different.
right.
And so when we figure out, as I'm sitting there with the client, and it comes up and they really have this like, yeah, if my own parents didn't love me, nobody's going to love me. Or if this didn't happen, then why should I do this? I don't deserve anything, I don't deserve love. And we sit there and we connect the dots. And then when we have this moment where they burst through this, yeah, but you're not a little kid anymore. Your parents don't dictate whether you get love or not. Your parents were equally as messed up, as anybody else, and they were trying to raise a kid. And you see very clearly in somebody's face and in their demeanor and their energy, it just clicks and it just switches
Yeah,
to when you say, you're not 3 years old anymore, and that's not me anymore. And they're like, I'm not three, and that's not me, and I
right.
deserve love, and I am enough, and
Yeah,
I'm smart enough, and I'm lovable, and you just see everything shift. And it is my absolute favorite part, because it's just magical to watch them go from this person that just is so wounded, and they think they're so broken, to, I'm amazing,
mhm,
and I can now achieve anything that I want. And this is absolutely available. And I'm going to go after it. And I'm motivated, and watch out. And you're just like, yes, that's exactly what we're looking for. And it's the best part.
yeah, and you probably find that like everyone is wounded like before they really become an adult. And if they can't like get past that age of where they were wounded, their mentality is that age for a long time. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? You know,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
you're stuck in this way that you felt, and you because it was the first thing that you felt and you learned or whatever, it really impacts the rest of your life. And when people grasp just that, you're like, oh, like that's why. And so when you're asking these questions, like, is your client under hypnosis already, or do you ask these questions to get to like the nugget of where it all starts, and then you put them into hypnotherapy to like keep moving past that, or how does that like work?
We typically do a intake just kind of get to know you part is, what do you want? And you absolutely can ask the same questions. Like if, let's say they're dealing with anxiety and I say, well, where do you think it came from? Or where, you know, where do you think it stemmed from? And
Right.
there's a good majority of people who truly went through something traumatic and absolutely horrific, and they know where it started from.
Yeah.
And that happens often. But at the same time, then you have other people who, you say, well, when do you remember feeling calm? And they think, I don't think I've ever felt calm. I don't think I've ever not had anxiety. And so that's when, and it's fine, because then we put them into hypnosis. And then you go back to a scene, a time, a memory, a place. And we say this, go back to a scene, a time, a memory, a place, all to do of when you created this, or when you had this belief, or it created in you to help you. And depending on the situation, you say different things, but so you can do it. So typically you do it under hypnosis.
Yeah.
Just because what's really fascinating is a lot of times people will fixate on one event. Oh, this happened and this is clearly why.
Right.
But under hypnosis, you get so much more information, and you get a deeper level that people typically tend to forget. As to this wasn't my client, but it was a colleague of mine.
Yeah.
Where she had always had anxiety, and so they asked her, or I was a part of this, and so she was being asked, why do you have anxiety, kind of thing, go through the whole thing. And
Right.
as she being asked this, she remembers drowning. She remembered not so much drowning, but she just kind of went into the pool and sank to the bottom. And she doesn't remember anybody helping her out. She just kind of remembers figuring it out and getting out at some point, but she doesn't really remember anybody helping her.
Yeah.
But under hypnosis, she remembered the thought, I deserve to die, because she was abused by a relative of hers. And
Wow.
so it stuck in her conscious mind. It stuck that the drowning gave her anxiety.
Ah.
That's where it stuck. But when we went deeper in hypnosis,
Yeah.
she had all this other stuff come up that while she was underwater, she thought, I deserve to die because nobody loves me and I want this to end. And so that's where it really triggered, because in these are the stories. I know a lot of people talk about, they label it like a story, but that was her story. Is
Yeah.
she deserved to die. She deserved it.
Wow.
And so that's where we put those tags, those labels, those
Yeah.
like stories. And
Wow.
under hypnosis is where you really find that's the right there. That's the key.
So when you're under hypnosis, like what is it actually doing? Like for the client? Is it making them feel so calm and comfortable? Is that where you're putting them in? Or like explain like what actually is happening when you're putting someone under hypnotherapy to get them to see other things.
So when you go into hypnosis, it really is just a very relaxed state.
Right.
And the point is your subconscious mind remembers everything.
Yeah.
And so when we are speaking to you, it's really the subconscious mind that is being talked to.
Huh.
And so if I were to ask you a question, and I would say, what was going on at 4 years old? What was happening at 4 years old? You may remember a few things, you may not,
Right.
right?
Right.
And you'll come up with, oh, we lived here and this was our house. And you'll think of things that are on the conscious level.
Yeah.
But when you go under hypnosis and it's very subconscious,
Right.
you really can bring up a lot of those memories. Now you can't ever relive them, which
Yeah.
is sometimes a fear of people. I'm going to relive this. I'm going to,
Huh.
and
Oh,
that's not a case. You
yeah.
can't relive it, but
Yeah.
you can review it. And so it's really interesting that you'll have these memories that you truly never, you feel like you forgot. I mean, clearly they're in your subconscious mind, so you didn't forget them, but you feel like you forgot them. And then you're like, oh, that's so interesting, because when you start to connect the dots, you have this memory of whatever, and then you go to another memory, and then you go to another memory. And then we just go through, and when we connect the dots, it's this detective work to say, okay, here you have the person, here you have these events, these moments in your life. And then in this hand, you have the person that you are today. So how have these created the person that you are today? And every single person can connect the dots,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it always comes back to those three things of I'm not enough, it's not available to me. And they just put a true belief on it
Yeah.
that this happened, these things happened, so I am never going to be loved. These things happened, so no matter what I do, I'm never going to be successful.
Yeah.
And then we just go in and break it.
Right.
Another really good example of it is, so your conscious mind, if I were to say, what's 1 + 1?
Yeah.
2, right? That's your conscious mind. But
Yeah.
if I were to throw a ball at your head and you caught it, or you ducked, that's your subconscious mind. It's really the instant reaction, the emotion that is being led through the subconscious mind, where the conscious mind is very logical.
Right. It's really interesting how much is in our subconscious minds that like I mean, we don't even tap into it as much as like we can. But of course, with this, like with you and hypnotherapy, like you can, and and that's the whole point is like remembering something that was triggering you that you thought wasn't because you're manifesting, or not manifesting, but just totally fixating on one thing, because there's so much. Our subconscious mind always holds everything. I feel like it's always there and you don't know it. Like our the brain is like so fascinating, and it's so fascinating, like how much we don't even like tap into it, you know because
Yeah.
it's so healing when we can tap into it, and we have people like you to be able to tap into those things and recognize like, oh, it's actually this. It's just like, I'm very afraid of like the ocean waves. I mean, the ocean is the scariest thing, and to me, it's the most beautiful thing, but it's like, to me, like that can just swallow up the whole earth any moment. But, when I was younger, was in junior lifeguards, and, I would never do the ocean stuff. I would do everything in the sand. We were going to swim around the pier. I couldn't do it. I was so afraid. I would get anxiety under waves all the time. And there was a summer where I told my brother when I was older, I was like, you're going to teach me how to surf every single day. And I would get out there and all this anxiety would happen. And I'm like, God, where does that come from? And my mom had told me a story one time that I don't really know how the story really goes, but she went to go in the house to get lemonade, which is kind of like lemonade. Okay. She went and got a house to get lemonade, and I was floating in the pool, not breathing. And I definitely was like, that's why I'm scared to be underwater, you know? And so I still have that fear. I don't like being under a wave because I feel like it's just going to keep going. I'm going to die. You know what I mean? Um, but that's what you get from like practicing and getting over your fears, where that's exactly what I'm hearing is hypnotherapy is like finding that fear and becoming unfearful of it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. And you, the biggest thing is we go and we break
Yeah.
whatever the habit is, right? Because you go in and you say, you figure it out. So you really disrupt whatever that belief system is. The
Right.
thing that I will have to say that really concretes a good belief system is we also give you a recording, a personalized recording.
Yeah.
So then, and that's why it's really important to say, what do you want? So for somebody who's really, deathly afraid of the water, we would go and definitely break that,
Yeah.
to say, well, it's very age appropriate to be afraid of the water. You didn't have any, you didn't have the skills, but you're older now, right? You're definitely older now. You definitely have those skills now.
Yeah.
So that's where you would break it. But then we would really just hit it hard with the recording to say, you are a strong swimmer, you feel comfortable in the water, you feel nothing but ease. And you listen to this recording for 21 days, and it just wires in your brain for that 21 days to whatever it is that we're working on, right? Like you're successful or you have insane confidence.
Yeah.
So it's a huge part to break that. That's a great thing. And afterwards, you do feel amazing and you do feel
Right.
great. But that recording that we give you afterwards, it just wires it in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that is probably one of the most beneficial things that you do because, yeah, you can unbreak it, but it also takes work to keep it unbroken. Right. And so do people like when you have these recordings, like, do they remember it like afterwards? Like, because you see in movies all the time, you're hypnotized and you're like, I know, I don't remember anything. Or is it different for everybody? They remember exactly what you're talking about, or they listen to it, they're recording and they're like, wow, I didn't even know that, and they have to like learn through the recording of what just happened.
It really depends. I would have to say, well, during a session, you remember everything,
Yeah.
right? Like during a session, you remember everything that happens. You remember the things the scenes that you came up with.
Yeah.
Um, typically, because the person's so relaxed, and I would have to, from what I can tell, people get to a point where they're so relaxed they don't really care because they're just feeling so great, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that.
So I definitely have clients where they listen. So I'll say like, you need to listen to the recording at least once a day.
Yeah.
But some people will listen to it on their drive. Some people will listen to it as they're working out because it's just a repetitive,
Yeah.
um, just a great way to really sink that in.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So it's not that when they're being hypnotized, they truly go into just such a very relaxed state that the majority of them, they feel great and they know they have more. If we're working on confidence, they know they have more confidence. And the biggest thing is the brain learns from repetition.
Mhm.
So a huge part of it is I will say a lot of things over and over and over again. So it's not terribly entertaining. It's not like I'm saying something random like, and now you're going to win $1 billion. And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that'd be
Right?
great.
Yeah. It's more like you feel confident, you feel confident, you feel amazing. And then you see yourself walking in, you see yourself taking a deep breath and feeling at peace, and you feel yourself, sorry, there's
Oh, it's
a
okay.
fly or something. And you feel yourself just walking in, taking control and commanding a room, and you feel confident. And so, yeah, there's a lot of repetition. So you feel great, you feel amazing, but it really is, I think more what you're talking about is kind of that subconscious,
Yeah.
right? That, and yeah, you do know what I'm saying, but then you get consciously, you kind of don't care because you just feel so great and you're like, this is amazing.
That's so cool. That is so cool. And so like with you doing hypnotherapy, like what is the end game for you? Like what are your other goals that you want to accomplish with helping others?
right now, I'm actually pretty excited because being actually part of this den, I have met so many amazing people, but I would also say the like first responders and people who have really, really hard jobs, like cops and military. One of the things that uh, they just don't have the support in this area. You know, self-care, self-help, the getting in touch, self-awareness is very geared towards women. And the more men I meet, the more first responders and cops and military, it really has kind of broken my heart that they're just kind of left to their own of like, well, you had Dan on an episode, and one of the things we've connected, and one of the things that was just the biggest aha for me as I was talking to him
Yeah.
is you have these firefighters and these policemen who on a daily basis, every day, it is a life or death situation.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to go to work, have these intense, very traumatic experiences, and then are expected to walk to their son's soccer game or their child's ballet recital as if they didn't just experience something insanely traumatic. And they're supposed to have relationships and they're supposed to have a normal life, but yet like not get it out, not process it,
Right.
because I don't even know how you would process that on a daily basis, right?
Right.
Because if you think about it, like I mean, if you're a banker and you went through a traumatic event just once,
Yeah.
you would
Yeah.
be in therapy for 6 months. You would be in therapy trying to process this thing. And these people are I know I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole, but I just truly find it um insane that they're just supposed to do it all by themselves.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
one of the things I've started a 30-day self-awareness challenge, and
Yeah.
my hope is that I mean anybody can take it,
Yeah.
because I really want to get out there, because it's not just first responders, it's not just military, but I really built it for them in mind, because you know they're not gonna get the cute pens and the cute stickers with cute little journal, right? They're like, it's really geared towards women,
Yeah.
because it's all cute and color coordinated, which is so much fun for us. But for them, it's just they don't want to sit and talk about their feelings in a way of the way we do.
Right.
So I really tried. My hope is that I have geared it towards towards men who can start processing and learning about themselves and about self-awareness. And
Absolutely.
it's not so foofy, it's not so girly, color coordinated, but
Yeah.
it's just very like, do this, journal like this, you know, learn. If you can't meditate, figure out why.
Ex-
Not just, you know,
exactly.
not just because you need to meditate. Why can't you meditate?
Right.
That's something. If you
Right.
can't meditate, that's something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Because like, when I first listened to Dan talking to Nick on Instagram Live, I was like, holy shit, like this is like huge. What you want to do with that, what he wants to do with that is massive, because I have a lot of firefighters in my life, and nurses, like what they see every single day. Luckily some of them have long drives home so they can like kind of decompress and have that moment. But then you come home to like being a dad and a wife, or being single and having to sit there in your own mind. And there's like no help for it. It's crazy to me. I mean, just even the fact of going more down the rabbit hole of like how mental health is not even in our insurance. Like, what the heck, it should be automatically, and at least, first responders insurance, like they should have different insurance, at least something somewhere. Because it is very, very much a true thing that's happening with our first responders. And I have a friend who was in the SWAT team for years. I just saw him last month when I was visiting my best friend for her 40th birthday. I totally surprised her. And he came up to me and he's like a man, and he's like, Brittany, I just want to let you know, like, I watched your channel. I watched that episode with Dan about PTSD. He's like, I don't do SWAT anymore because of that. I got let go because of my PTSD. And I was like, really? And he's like, what you're doing is awesome because we need more of that. We need more people, more voices, more everything. And he's like, now I'm a farmer and I love my life. And I really appreciate that I got to watch that and know that I wasn't feeling alone, because a lot of them just feel alone when they're completely not alone. There's so many other people like struggling through this, regardless of what you do, but especially in the first responder world. And it's like, if we can change their lives, like that's incredible. It's so incredible. So what is your 30-day challenge? Like, talk about that. Let's share it. Want you to share that on our episode today.
Yeah, I'd love to. So
Yeah.
I wanted it to start because I knew in my journey, you would read all these self-help books
Yeah.
and it was like, do hard things.
Yeah.
And, but I always kind of feel like they would give like this example of run a marathon. And I
Right.
thought, I'm not even getting out of bed. Like we are not on marathon level here, you know? And and so I thought, what is, if you are really in the lowest of lows, if you are dealing with mental health or PTSD, anxiety, ADHD, these really hard things, and or just really there's a lot going on right now, where do you start from there? And so I picked these 6 areas of, first of all, that you really gear them towards you. The whole point is it's not like you have to do it a certain way. It's
Right.
more, this is figure out who you are, figure out how you work
Right.
to support you, to get you to the person that you want to be, to get you to the person that, all right, you love being a firefighter. That's amazing. Now, how do you be a firefighter, maintain healthy relationships, and deal with all this stuff that you're dealing with? How do
Right.
you do that? And
Right.
so the 6 areas, I'll just go through them briefly. So the first one is routine. Pick
Yeah.
a routine, pick systems that are going to help you maintain or become the person that you want to be. So we know sleep is so important, right? That's a huge part of mental health. It's a huge part of everybody. I mean, if you're not suffering from mental health, sleep is huge. And one of the things that a lot of people, they don't even know how much sleep they need.
Yeah.
So they'll say, I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. so I can get a lot done.
Yeah.
But do you need 5 hours of sleep? Do you need 8 hours of sleep? Do you need 9 hours of sleep?
Yeah.
Right. And so I love this concept of, so for me, I took about a week. I can't remember where I heard this from. I want to say Tom Bilyeu's podcast, but he said where you, for about a week, you go to sleep and then see what time you wake up. And you'll be able to gauge, I am a 6-hour asleep, like I'm a 6-hour person, right? So for me, 7 to 7.5 hours, I don't care what time I go to bed, I will wake up between 7 and 7.5 hours.
Yeah.
And so now, because I have that information, I know that if I go to bed at 10 o'clock, I can wake up super early. It's not that hard. I don't have to go to bed at 8 o'clock to wake up early
Right.
because I only need 7.5 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And so it's things like that that help you start to take control of your routine and your systems and your habits,
Yeah.
because we all know that our habits create us, right? And if you want to create a different person, if you want to create a different person or a different self, you have to change your habits. So start with a routine that is going to support you in that, rather than trying to fight against the grain because you're trying to stay up, or you're trying to do something that doesn't support who you want to become. So that's the first thing. The next one is no electronics before bed, and or excuse me, right as you wake up and before you go to bed. So I say an hour.
Yeah, I agree with that one big time.
Yeah. And that one, I've had the biggest pushback from everybody. Like everybody I talk to, everybody I've run this by, they're like, well, and in my thought process, I always think, name one thing that you're doing an hour when you wake up and an hour before bed that you just could not get done
Yeah.
in the day, right? And usually it's a timing thing. Your routine, and that's kind of a routine thing. It goes back to making sure that you have a good routine so that
Right.
you can have that time.
Yeah.
But your mind is clear, especially going to bed.
Yeah.
And the waking up one, I just really loved the thought of how many times do we roll over and like our phones are just in our faces, right? And it's Instagram and Facebook, and that's not a great way to start. I mean, I could go down the rabbit hole of the research of how not healthy it is to start the day like that. And then same with like nighttime, right? How many times do we need to hear about blue light and turn off the electronics before you go to bed?
Yeah. Ed Milet talks about that a lot, how he, wakes up, pounds water. And I love this. I started doing it because of what he said a while ago. Like, just totally hydrate yourself. Either take a like cold shower, run in the ocean, which he does. I don't totally take a cold shower because it's a little struggle for me, but I will rinse my face in cold water until I get that like feeling, or I'll splash it on my chest, whatever. And it just to wake up your nerves. And then, put that, put it in your meditation right there, your prayer in there, whatever. And then you're like, kind of like in an hour, and then you can start doing your work, because once you get on your phone or your computer or all that stuff, you're working, and it just is like nonstop from there, you know? And so I felt like that has been a huge change in just what I've done in my routine. I mean, I might text, somebody after a while, but I still will do at least 3 of those things before I just text somebody back, which is usually a family member, or a friend, or Dan, you know what I mean? That's important for me to like stay connected, And so, but other than that, like it's totally, that can wait. And you do have to wake up a little bit earlier sometimes to do those things. But it makes your whole day like totally shift into like a more calm state, and you're actually more productive because you focused on you first.
Yeah,
You didn't have the
absolutely.
distraction of what people are doing on Facebook and Instagram. They're great tools for business, but you focused on somebody else instead of yourself. And I think that's where
Yeah.
the biggest thing is, of that shift and creating that new habit to becoming the person that you want to be.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Like social media is amazing to
Oh,
create content and to connect with people,
yeah.
but I mean, I try to create a good amount of content, and even if I were to add up, getting a podcast out and a YouTube video out and TikToks and reels out, it's still not nearly the amount that I have spent just browsing, right? And just
Right.
mind numbing.
Yeah.
So that's really why I put it in there, just
I love
to
that.
watch, to start watching. Well, and the other thing is that I think was really fascinating is how many people pushed back on that, right? Like, oh, I need it. And I thought, that's something, and again, what I want people to really look at. Why is there such a need? Why is there a fear that you're going to miss out, or you're going to miss a call, or
Right.
you're going to miss a text? Like
Right.
that to me is really such, I mean, I know it's the therapy part in me, but that initial emotion, anytime there's an emotional reaction, that to me is just always so fascinating.
Yeah.
And I've not to go off here, but that's really what I've tried to train my brain,
Mhm.
is to look at any emotional reaction, right? If I have this emotional reaction to putting my phone down, why? It's a phone. What am I going to miss? That
Right.
if there's a horrible accident or there's a horrible event, I'm going to find out. Somebody's
Sure.
going to get a hold of me
That's
one
what I
way or
always
another.
say. Yep.
Yeah, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear about it. Or same with like going to bed at a certain time. If you just have this emotional like fight of going to bed, why is that such an emotional thing
Right.
for you? So that kind of brings me to the next thing, which is meditation. I call it meditation, but the what I love to do is because of hypnotherapy, I typically tend to broaden this. So if you want to listen to a hypnosis recording, or if
Mhm.
you want to meditate on your own, or you want to do breath work,
Yeah.
I totally count all of those, because I think any part of that is going to do what we're talking about, make you self-reflect. It's going to make you look inward to go, why am I having these emotional reactions?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? And
Right.
that's really why I put it on there, is make sure you're doing twice a day where you're really um, doing a lot of self-reflection. Go through these 6 things,
Yeah.
go through these, but while you're going through them, start really looking at what's hard, what's bringing up a reaction, what's triggering.
Right.
um and and it's so fascinating, because when I'll mention these, some people are super triggered with like the meditation. Oh, I can't meditate, which I'm just like,
Totally. Yeah.
that's so interesting that's like automatically, right? Automatic. I can't. Nope.
Yeah.
We're done. We're not even going to start the challenge because I can't meditate.
I
And I'm
used to,
going,
I used to say that. I used to say that like a long time ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, when I started like I don't have time for that. Like I don't know how to do that. And there's no right way to do it. That's the thing. There's so many things that you can learn. And if you can't meditate for at least 5 minutes, like come on, 5 minutes, and it's like for what I've practiced over the last 5, 6 years of meditation, everything I do in my day is like way more calmer. I can hear people more. I listen better. I am more calm about when things are going to set me off emotionally or like react to something or some things. And when I don't meditate, I do feel a little different. Like, and so, I mean, 5 minutes, guys, 5 minutes. Like, and there's so many things out there that you can learn how to do it. YouTube, Calm app, uh, Headspace, which is an app, also on Netflix. Um, Hypnotherapy meditations, which I've never done. I'm very curious. I would love to know like where we find those. But there's so much, you just learn about it. Hello, you have this tiny little computer. Just be like, how do you meditate? Ask Siri.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I
No,
mean? It's
you're
like
absolutely right.
you can learn whatever you want on that phone. So it's up to you to make a choice to be like, I can change your narrative.
Yeah. Which is again what I find so fascinating. The
Ah,
when something just flies out of somebody's mouth, oh, I can't. I'm like, really? That's it. I mean, that's interesting, because that was a very intense reaction to
right.
something very what should be simple, right? So
Right.
yeah, there's so many things. And part of it, so because I love doing hypnosis recordings,
Yeah.
I put them on my podcast, which is just Basic to Bold podcast. So I specifically put, they're about between 15 to 20 minutes long. So if you just, for whatever reason, you cannot meditate or you hate meditating,
Yeah.
you truly just have to listen to this, and it counts, right? If you haven't found anything, just listen. You follow it. I just walk you, just kind of like a hypnosis session, and it's really just working through. It kind of gives you some ideas as to bring certain things up.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of different ones. So if you like want to work on confidence, or you want to, self-love, things like
Yeah.
that.
That's cool. I actually did not know, or maybe I just like did not see that you had a podcast. So I'll make sure to put that link in the bio, you guys, if you want to have hypnotherapy style of meditation. Like, I'm excited about that. And it's you said bold to basic.
Basic to Bold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basic to bold. So I'll write that down the link unless you guys write it down. That's really cool. I'm excited about that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the next one is invest in yourself.
Mhm.
And I love the idea of, this was one of the things that I found. I just found it so hard to allow myself time and money. I just felt so guilty. I was constantly berating myself for any need I had, right? If I needed new clothes, well, the kids, they need new clothes. So,
Right.
and it's just, if I wanted to go on a retreat, or I wanted to take a girl, just some alone time, it was like, well, I'm sure the kids would love to go to the park. And it was just, right. And we should go on this family trip. It was just
Right.
nonstop. And
Right.
so I wanted to make sure that part of this was to really concentrate on getting your needs met. And
Absolutely.
a lot of times people don't even know what their needs are. Like they think maybe like it's a hobby or it's a fun little side thing, but they
Right.
don't really take it as like that's a full on need. Like if
Absolutely.
you love fishing or a manicure and a pedicure, if that just really grounds you and you feel like a whole new person after that, it's so easy to look at it and and just think, well, that's ridiculous. That's not really a need. Or, you know, going on a hike, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And we should so much, right? Because of these things that we just don't think are a very good use of our time.
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure that I put in invest in yourself, because it's such a huge part. Because I, for the longest time, would not do it and
Right.
couldn't figure out why I felt so crazy and why I felt like so unhappy,
Right.
because I was just giving
Yeah.
every ounce of me
Yeah.
and nothing replenishing it.
Yeah. And that happens a lot, especially to, when you're working a lot and you're a full-time mom or father, because, you're raising these children. And so like, I feel like mothers and fathers forget the most. That's just my experience. Even though I'm not a mother or father, this is what I
Probably true.
time is because they're just like, oh, and they feel guilty about investing in themselves. But it's like, think about it this way. If you don't invest in yourself, how are you going to invest in your kids? How are you going to invest
Absolutely.
in your business? How are you going to invest in like what your dreams and goals are if you can't invest in yourself? It's not possible. So if you
Yeah.
want to change that outlook of like, if I do this for me, I can do that and that and that and that. It's great.
The other thing that I found really fascinating is, one of the things that is very much a big need of mine is alone time.
Oh,
And yeah, I mean, it's such a huge part of who I am. And when I figured that out, I just kind of felt bad, obviously, right? Like there's that moment of like, oh, this is so stupid. I need alone time. But the interesting thing that I found is that when I go through a hard time, it's that alone time that allows me to process
Absolutely.
stress. And, you know, a few years ago, we had a death in the family, and it was that alone time that I felt more comfortable grieving
Yeah.
rather than with other people. And it was a really big aha for me,
Right.
because when I got alone, that's when I grieved. But
Yeah.
when I was with other people, I mean, I just kept shoving it down and shoving it down and shoving it down. And because I didn't feel comfortable letting that out in front of people.
Right.
And I used to really shame that about myself, being like, I should cry, I should be more vulnerable with
Right.
people. And I just really learned that's not how I process things. And that's okay. Some
Absolutely.
people love to cry with other people, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's not me. And
Yeah.
that's okay. And so I need that alone time to, especially if it's very, very stressful or it's just a lot is happening. I have to have alone time, because that is when it all comes out. That is when I release it and I get grounded and I feel at peace.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people allow themselves that processing time that they need, whether it's alone time or crying with people or
Yeah.
however they do it.
Absolutely. And you can make that as fun as you want. You know, like you can work out by yourself. You can go on a hike. You can go on a walk. You can have like bath time with like amazing like crystals and flowers in your bath. Like you can make it like a spiritual thing, a power thing for your body, like all these things, whatever that is for you to be alone in that alone time. I find that too. Like I love alone time because I think the most about and reflect on all these things, you know, because sometimes, you know, I had a death in the family too, and you feel like, you know, you have to be strong for your family, like, because you feel like you're the only one that's strong. So in that alone time, and I'm kind of both. Like I can be have grief with others, but have grief with myself, and I feel like those are very different, but very, very valuable to growing as a person. So I
Yeah.
love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
So the next one is learning about yourself. And this one I put kind of specific books, because I know we love a good self, if you're into the self-help, right? We love a good self-help.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wanted to make sure that, because of the way that this challenge was, I really wanted to make sure people concentrated on learning about who they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to read a book of success and like, you can do it, and just like, let's overcome, and you're amazing, and having confidence. That's great. And we all need those types of books. At the same time, are who are you, right? Like, who are you as a person? Are you a higher energy person? Are you a lower energy person?
Right.
And so I on my website, and during this challenge,
Yeah.
there's a few books that I'm kind of putting as required reading,
Yeah.
because I feel like they're so important that everybody should know. So one of them is Carol Tuttle. She has a lot of books about energy types, and
Right.
it's how you move through this world, right? Like it's a very much a movement. And that's so important to know, because we, in certain situations, higher energy people are very, very shamed. And in certain situations, lower energy people are very, very shamed. And if you were raised in a low energy family, but you are a very high energy person,
Yeah.
you were probably labeled as, you're too much, sit
Right.
down, stop moving, you
Right.
know. And if you're a very lower energy person and you were raised in a very high energy family, it was like, speed up, go faster, what are you doing, why are you sitting down? And so it's so important to realize, who are you? You
Yeah.
know, how do you process stress and grief? How do you do this? What is your, we talk about love languages, like I think that's a really well-known one, is
Right.
love languages, right? And then I give Tony Robbins credit for this, because this is where I heard it, but it's kind of all over in the self-help world. And that is, we have we have 6 needs, but I'm going to tell you the top 4, which is variety, consistency, love and connection, and significance. So
Yes.
what is your top 2 needs on that?
Right.
And you put all of these together and you're going to figure out your, what I call your rules. And when you know your rules, you know your standards. And when you know your standards, you now can create the boundaries that are right for you, right? But if you don't have your rules, if you don't know who you are, it's really hard to create boundaries because you're creating boundaries on somebody else's rules,
Yeah.
on like usually your parents' rules.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing.
So
That's like a super easy task to figure out. I mean, you might have
yeah,
to like journal about it to really figure out what it is instead of like, having the conscious brain like, oh, I'm like this, sit down and go into your subconscious brain a little bit to figure out what is it that you really need. That's wonderful.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
wonderful.
So the last one is, and this is journaling, which I will be the first one to tell you, I hate journaling. I've never loved journaling. I
Yep.
never got the point of it. Like I was always in awe of people who would sit down and just write pages and pages of life and what they're thinking. And I'm just like, I mean, I can write what I had for breakfast and I can write, I went to school today and I went to work, and I've just never been a journaler. But I found I really love journaling now because it keeps me on the path of who I'm trying to become. So I do three very, very specific things when I journal. The first thing I do is gratitude. And
Right.
these are things I'm truly grateful for. So um, I do not put, if me and my husband, if we're having like a little tiff or we're not arguing, I do not put, I'm grateful for my husband. Cause you know what, to be honest, I'm really not that day.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
not feeling it. And I
Yeah.
think it's really, really important to make sure that you really bring out the feeling of gratitude.
Yeah.
And so it may be as something as simple as, man, I had a great pizza at lunch, right? Like that was a
Yeah.
great pizza.
Yeah.
And those things are fine. And I do the big things too, right? Like I'm just truly, truly grateful for my life,
Yeah.
things like that. So I try to mix it up of what I'm really grateful for. And then the second part is I do things I am really congratulating myself for. And the reason I think this is so important is because if you struggle with depression at all, one of the biggest things with depression is you rip on yourself and berate yourself. And you are just, nobody could ever tell you anything worse that you're not already telling yourself. Like
Mhm.
nothing is ever good enough.
Mhm.
And so one of the when I learned this about depression,
Yeah.
one of the ways I started to retrain my brain is I really made sure and tried to, it can be a struggle still, but I really try to say very, very positive things about myself and only positive things about myself.
Right.
So I created a section where I list my accomplishments. And sometimes these accomplishments are very small
Yeah.
of, I made myself a really healthy breakfast this morning. Sometimes they're really small. And sometimes I finished a really big project that I have been wanting to create. And it's a big thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I did a 5K and I feel so proud of myself because I did it. But the
Absolutely.
biggest thing is I just make sure every day I am truly feeling a level of accomplishment so that I know I'm getting better. Because I look back
Yeah.
and sometimes in your brain you think, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not getting any better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this really kind of helps you keep on track. No, I am better because 2 years ago, I couldn't do this. Two
Right.
years ago or 5 years ago, this wasn't a thing.
Right.
And so the last part is I set intentions of the person I want to become.
Right.
Now, yes, sometimes I put like, I have an Aston Martin in the driveway. I have an in-ground pool, like things that
Yeah.
I want.
Yeah.
But it really is, I try to put stuff. Well, first I put it in the I am form, but I
Yeah.
really try to put who I'm becoming. So it's great to put, I have an in-ground pool, but
Yeah.
I also add that I have parties. I am connecting with people. I am bringing people together. I feel loved and connected with these parties and with this in-ground pool, because that's really why I want, right? Like I want this experience. I want to turn my house into a certain experience.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to record and put down on paper.
I love that because I mean, I listened to all these things this morning and I do all of them except, journaling. And I'm just like I had a roommate that would journal every morning and he would like sit in the sun and journal. And I was like, God, you're annoying. Like it was so annoying to me because and it was probably because I couldn't do that, but it was also like, I don't know. I couldn't handle it. But I obviously thought it was great. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And I still don't. I'm like, but I love how you put it in task form instead of sitting there like, what am I supposed to say on this piece of paper? I love that it's in tasks. And I really want to start implementing that in my daily routine because I was like, I can do that. I can totally do that. And you're right. Like you can save these journals and look back and that's look how cool that is reflected a reflection for you to like read, just like listening to the hypnotherapy recordings that you do. You also get to see where you're growing in these things, and I love that it's like in task form. So I hope all of you guys wrote that down. I will be rewriting it down somewhere in a post or something like that. But I will put her website down, her podcast down for you guys, because those 6 things can like completely change your life. And I love that, like, hey, let's set like a 30-day challenge. Let's start there. And if you can do 30 days, what else can you do?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's really was my thought. My thought was just start with 30 days. And then if you need to tweak it, tweak it. But at least it gets you into the mindset of, oh, this is clearly an issue. Oh, this is interesting, right? Going to bed is interesting, or meditating is
Yeah.
that brings up a whole other thing.
Right.
So when I put all of these together, I felt like it was just a starting point for everybody. And they're little enough that if you want
Yeah.
to make them super small, so you feel like it's not overwhelming, you can. But
Right.
at the same time, like you're already doing a good portion of this. Now, add the journaling
Yeah.
and start really seeing what comes up. Start really seeing
Yeah.
what's a trigger.
Yeah. That is so awesome. And I love that we ended this episode with that, because I think that is like everything in this conversation was so valuable. I think everything you said was so valuable, and then ending it with like kind of like homework that you can do. Um, so I just want to quickly ask, like, if someone wants to work with you as we end this call, can they work with you anywhere in the world?
Yes. So in fact, most of my clients are either out of my state or out of the country. So yeah.
That's super awesome. And what would you like to add? I always want my guests to have something that they want to share at the very end. Like, what's one thing that you feel very strongly about that you want to share to end this conversation with, maybe something that somebody that needs to hear it?
I kind of touched on it, but this is something that has truly become a motto of mine. And that is really starting to talk kindly to yourself. If
Mhm.
you're somebody who really is hard on themselves,
Yeah.
um, I kind of have my husband and I, we have kind of a funny saying, because there's that whole, you should do this and I should do that. And we'll eventually say to each other, stop shitting on yourself. Like, I'm not going to shit on you. You don't shit on me. And we're done shitting all over the place. Right. And so if, if you can start, one of the biggest things that and I cannot even tell you how much it changed my life. But if you struggle with mental health or just having very little self-love.
Right.
If you start implementing that everything you do is enough, and I mean everything. You woke up today, that was enough.
Yeah.
You sat on the couch and watched Netflix, that was enough.
Yeah.
Because good job, you needed rest.
Yeah.
If you went to work and came home, that was enough. You did your job.
Yeah.
And when I started saying these things to myself, that everything was enough, that's when my mind shifted.
Mhm.
Because when I would try to rip on myself to do better,
Yeah.
I would just spiral.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that makes any sense, that, or
It
what
does.
I'm trying to say,
No, it's
but
complete.
that was the biggest mind shift. And
Right.
and that is one thing that if I could shake every single person and just say, just start telling yourself what you're doing is enough.
Yeah.
It changes your world
Yeah.
drastically.
That's beautiful and very simple. I hope you guys learned a lot today. I know I did, and I'm so thankful for Jen. You know, we are in the same coaching group. We got to go to the women's event that I talked about with an episode that I did by myself a couple weeks ago, and how life-changing that was, and the connectivity. And it's just amazing. I'm so glad I have, you know, Jen on my show and in my life and all this stuff. It's just such a connective thing that I get to be a part of, and you guys get to be a part of it because I'm sharing it with you. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Jen, thank you so much for coming on my show. I really appreciate you. All the details are going to be in the links below. If you have any questions for myself, especially for Jen, I will put her Instagram link below. You know, reach out to her, message her, because that's what we do. We want to help you guys. So any question is a good question. So don't be afraid to reach out, and we're here for you. So we love you. And here's to being as free as we can together and individually. So go have an amazing day, you guys. And thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. I had a great time. This was
Yeah.
amazing.
And we gotta have fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, you guys take care, and I will see you in the next episode.